Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. All right, this is going to be awesome. This is going to be cool. Today, I am going to share with you ranked my top 5 weirdest record players. And these are units that we've reviewed. So if you want to see full reviews, you can check out all of that stuff. But I'm taking the top 5. We reviewed hundreds of record players at this point over our 5-year and counting history so far. And there's been some real oddballs, some of which you might have forgotten about, some of which you might have missed. But here they are in a particular order, ranked number 5 through number 1, my weirdest record players.
This is Record-ology.
Okay, and coming in at number 5 is the very 1970s show and tell phono viewer from General Electric. There were different versions of this. Mine is the one you see in front of you. Obviously, the essence of this is that if you could get your hands on the records and specifically the slides, it would play a story, and then the slides would go in the slot here and sync up pictures onto the screen. And for kids, it was like, wow, I got a television. This is my own television. I mean, I'm sure that was what they were going after. And as a kid, the thought of being able to play a program, put something on a screen that you could control, I totally get why that would be fun, why that would be exciting. But this is a very 70s boxy thing. The cord spools up on this back here. We've got a pretty basic plastic platter with what was probably once rubber nubs. They've hardened almost completely to plastic at this point. And this is an idler drive, if I remember correctly. And if you take the E-clip off, you would see an idler wheel. It is 3 speeds with the old style speed selector switch. If the tone arm looks dangerously low to you, it's just because it sits in this little clip here. And that's about all there is to it. It's a cool little unit, and I was looking for these for a long time. But again, what are you going to do if you don't have any programs? Well, no problem, my friends, because I found a bunch of programs. Some came with the unit, some I got elsewhere, and this is more than, anybody would care to own, I think. But yeah, this is the essence of what they are like. You can see a different picture of a different version of this unit right there on the front. And like I said, there was several different versions, and this was but one of them. So you've got some intellectual properties that were like public domain, and then you've got some highly copyrighted ones like Cinderella. But all of them would come in these little packets here, listing kind of like a little golden book on the back, everything that you could get or other titles you could get. It would come with one 33 RPM record. This is just a standard record. You could play this on a regular record player as well. Instructions for use, and then the actual film slides. Most of them have kind of yellowed and lost color because I'm sure they used a low grade film material. But this machine amazingly syncs the sound with the video and advances the slide. I think you push it down and then it goes up as the story progresses. So some of these were plastic, I believe. This one actually is a plastic one, and I think some were cardboard, like I said. So pretty cool little unit. It works as a standalone record player too. You don't have to have these programs, but if you do, that is what it would be used for. Some of these don't have records or slides. Some of them are just empty, as you can see, but most of these are complete programs. So let's go ahead and kill the lights and test it out. You can't see anything with the light on because it's just got it doesn't have a projector bulb or anything. It's got probably a 30-watt incandescent bulb in there. So unless it's pitch dark, you're not going to see much. And but a cool system inside of how it uses mirrors to reflect the light, et cetera, et cetera. So let's test it out.
Hello. Do you see this little girl in the bright red riding hood? Well, that's her name, Little Red Riding Hood.
Yoo-hoo! Little Red Riding Hood, where are you?
And that's her mother.
Here I am, Mother. Oh, that's a good girl. Now, Grandmother is not feeling well today, so I want you to take this basket of goodies to her. Very well, Mother.
So Little Red Riding Hood skipped off down the path through the woods to her grandmother's house. somebody else was also in the woods. The wolf. Hello, little girl. What do you have in the basket that you could share with the kindly old wolf?
Just some goodies for my grandmother, but I'm afraid that every one of them is for her.
And on she skipped down the road. But the wolf had
Definitely simpler times, a lo-fi experience, but still cool, still interesting. I definitely get the appeal. Coming in at number 4 is the Crosley Revolution Soundburger-esque design. This is the first gen. This featured a magnetic cartridge. They came out with a second gen a couple years later that had a cheaper magnetic or a cheaper ceramic cartridge, Chuo-denshi design. I didn't like that one as much. But this first gen attracted me for a couple of reasons. A, it was available. Soundburgers, unless you got several hunch to drop on them, not so much. But this is definitely not at that level of quality. That being said, it is very, very cool. It's the same basic design. It's battery operated. It's portable. This one also has a built-in FM transmitter, so you can transmit this wirelessly. A lot of equipment, not a lot, but there was some record player and CD player equipment pre-Bluetooth, and this dates to like 2010, 2012-ish, kind of before Bluetooth massively took over for wireless connectivity. Anyway, a lot of older tech featured the FM transmission feature. So if we look on the bottom here, 2010 this was made, and it's got an FM transmitter. You can pick 2 frequencies. Hopefully there's no local radio station in your area. You could apparently even wall mount this. There's like these little notches here. That'd be kind of weird. The motor is right here. It is speed adjustable, and you can run the whole thing off of, I think, 6 AA's. I haven't had this on the show for probably 6 months or so, and as you can see, the batteries are corroded. There's acid coming out of there, so that's not a good thing at all. You can also power it off of a 9-volt power supply. It's got a headphone jack, line output, USB, so you can use this to rip your records if you find the need and necessity to do that. I personally have never felt that. I just never feel like doing that. But anyway, we have done shows on how to restore a record, and we'll probably do more, how to bring it into Audacity, clean it up, take out the noise, etc., etc. 2-speed turntable, a little dusty here, it's been in storage. Volume, there's built-in speaker if you don't want to use the line output or the headphone out, and obviously a power button. Now this latch opens up, and you can see under the hood here we've got a standard tone arm design, but like I said, this does feature a groove tool type of magnetic cartridge. And right here, this guy right here functions as a spacer and a place for the tone arm to rest when it's in storage. So you can put this on there, and it also helps the lid. If you want to put the lid down when the record's playing, it kind of acts as a stabilizer a little bit right there. One of the issues with this turntable is that it features, yes, it does actually have a rubber platter mat, a very small one. It features a very lightweight plastic platter. Like I said, it is belt driven. Man, this thing is dusty. Kind of embarrassing there. Sorry about that. And this thing has no mass inertia. No mass inertia. So all of the motor inconsistencies on a small record translate into noticeable wow and flutter. If you put on a big record, like we're going to do here in a second, it's not really an issue. You don't really notice it, but you hear a lot of wow and flutter with a 7-inch record. So let's go ahead and test it with a record. This is Enoch Light in the Light Brigade, stereo edition. I'm going to take off, first I'm going to put it in frame, that helps. I'm going to take off the stylus guard. I'm going to put the stylus down on the edge, and we'll go ahead and put this on. This is optional. It adds a negligible amount of stabilization there. Power it on, and here we go. There's even wow and flutter with the large record. Oops. This won't be taking the place of my Technics anytime soon. That being said, it is cool, it is weird, and I do like it from the novelty standpoint. Probably one of the most portable units that you could ever ask for. And if you wanted to use it to take to like a record show, in theory, the idea would be that, hey, if I take this to a record show, I can actually test out some records in a quick and easy way. But the problem is, unless you're using the headphones, that built-in speaker is a little rough. If speaker engineering these days, small speaker engineering I should say specifically, isn't that bad. It's got this little handle back here. It keeps getting jammed in the lid. But back, 10, 15 years ago, they hadn't quite perfected that art, I don't think, of small speakers, because you've got probably, what is that, a half-inch driver, maybe a 1-inch driver, and that's rough. So it definitely is like, yes, there's sound, yes, there's signal. It basically shows you that it's got sound, but it doesn't give you any level of high fidelity. It's mono, et cetera, et cetera. Now, if you are plugged into the line out or headphone jack, it's a bit of a different story. Coming in at number 3 is the 3-inch record player. I have decided, I own 3 of these 3-inch record players. Makes sense. I have decided this is novelty only. There is no legitimate use for this to be a music format that you just listen to for the sound quality, because every one that I've ever touched suffers from some degree of degradation, usually wow and flutter, etc., etc. That being said, it's a fantastic novelty, and I think it's very, very fun. This is probably my favorite. This is a Crosby RSD 2020. This is essentially the 8-band design. They worked with the same people to put this product together. And likewise, it is, or as such, I should say, it is backwards compatible with the 8-band records. The original 8-band used a smaller hole like that, so you've got the spindle is that size, and then these adapters kind of look like 45 adapters if you want to use the newer records. So they are completely self-contained and battery operated. As you can see there, you could power this thing right off of batteries. It uses the exact same size motor, the JYK motor, that 90% of entry and mid-level record players use. It's kind of hard to see from this angle, but it is belt driven, and that little black belt going around the platter there. This is obviously designed to have the same design aesthetic as a C100, which has a similar design aesthetic as an LP120, which has a similar design aesthetic as a Technics 1200 unit. So just for fun, I mean, these are super, super cool. It does have a functional pitch slider. This has a Audio-Technica 3600L Phono cartridge, again, the exact same one in a larger unit. So you technically can get pretty good sound, assuming you can get the speed stabilized, and that's the biggest issue. A little speaker there, etc., etc. It does have a line out or headphone output that you can use as well. I love this clear one. There was a previous version, the RSD, I think it's just called the RSD, which was identical to this, but it had gray plastic. It wasn't clear. They also did a Crosley Mini Cruiser that looked like a Crosley Cruiser, but it played 3-inch records. So obviously you need 3-inch records, and where are those? Well, they're right here. This is actually the case that goes with the Mini Cruiser. It's designed to match. It's like a miniature record case that holds miniature records, you guessed it. And I got all sorts of titles. I got Posty on here. They're still issuing these. You can buy them various places online. Some custom-made ones, Disney ones, and these ones are cool because they're colored vinyl. And let's talk for a second about the record itself. So most of these are actually ABS plastic with a thin, clear vinyl veneer. Sort of like a picture disc, or sort of like a flexi disc is adhered as a laminate to the ABS base. And that's how they work. So yeah, all colors, all titles. Obviously there's not a selection, to the scale of regular full-size records, but it is cool. And I do have one original 8-band record in here somewhere. The original 8-band record has this really interesting comic, and that's another thing, is these all come with mini posters. There's more to it than just the record. It's definitely a novelty, like I said, but it's a very fun novelty. And here is an original but scratched 8-band record with a small hole. And yeah, pretty cool stuff. They are mostly one-sided. This one is, as well as the example I showed you before. And the sound quality is going to be iffy. And that's just the way it is. You can play these with custom-made adapters. I've done this on the show before on a full-size record player and get pretty dang good fidelity out of it. Speed consistency on this small of a record is the issue. So The reason why they're not pressed in vinyl is you can't really press a vinyl record smaller than, say, 5 or 6 inches. So what ends up happening is they have to do the ABS disc and then laminate over the top of that. So without further ado, let us go ahead and listen to this 8-band record. They are 33 RPM. So very, very cool, a very fun novelty, but definitely a novelty. This is not a core vinyl product. This is definitely a rabbit hole, but a fun one to pursue anyway. All right, and coming in at number 2, a very interesting unit. This is how you play a record on this particular unit. That's it. Well, not quite. Maybe saying to yourself, are you crazy? Record-ology's finally gone off the deep end. Some of you are like, I know exactly where this is going. This is the RockBlocks. RockBlock. Record player. Just can't quite call. I don't think any of these are quite turntables. To me, turntables is a component system. A record player plays a record. It's often portable with built-in speakers, etc., etc. This is a record runner, essentially. If you remember those, they often look like Volkswagen buses from the 70s. There was a Kickstarter project launched after these guys were fairly successful, if I remember correctly, on Shark Tank, and I don't know if it was a GoFundMe or I think it was some other sort of funding platform, but these were made, and they're still made as far as I understand. This is 2017 is when I got this. It is a 2-speed turntable. It does send Bluetooth out. It does have a built-in speaker, a rechargeable battery, powerful built-in speaker, arguable. Ultra lightweight, I would agree with that. Diamond tip stylus included. If you haven't seen this, you're in for a treat because it is something to behold. And it is just bizarre. So literally, it's got wheels because it is a vehicle. And instead of the record rotating and the stylus being static, this is the record player. It drives around. So the record stays still and the record player moves. And it pivots at an angle. You're thinking to yourself, this can't work. There's no way this can possibly work. You can see it uses a large wheel and a small wheel, so it gets the right angle. Well, what about 7-inch records? Stay tuned for that. It's rather fascinating. It's got a volume switch because there are built-in speakers, rechargeable via USB-C, the 2-speed selector switch, the Bluetooth out, etc., etc. Right off the bat, I'm going to tell you that this thing will carve your records. And because that Project 3 record is a beautiful thing and I want it to last, I am not going to use that record for this test. We are going to use a test record, one that has been committed for the purposes of education and demonstration. But this pushes the needle through. Usually on a record player, the record surface would travel in this direction under the stylus in a sort of reverse to the angle of the cantilever and the diamond itself. In this situation, the needle gets pushed through the groove, which, yes, that does work. Thankfully, this Chuo-Denshi type of cartridge does have the rubber boot and a metal cantilever and hopefully a diamond stylus like it says, but it gets the job done. Surprisingly, it gets the job done. I'll show you what this arm is for in a minute. But first, let me get a suitable record. All right, so we've got our test subject selected. I'm going to put this on 33 RPM. You will see it light up. We need to loosen this from, there's like a clipped in position, so we're going to loosen that up a little bit. Just touch the needle. Again, I don't think it'll matter. And what we're going to do is place the record, and the reason why I'm going like this is because you want to make sure that the stylus is in the lower position, not rotated. What's amazing about this to me, given its faults, is the fact that it actually changes the speed that it travels over the record depending on the angle of the stylus. Because as you know, you've got continual angular velocity and continual linear velocity. This is a CAV format, and that's relative to the speed of the vinyl under the needle, even though the record's spinning at a constant 33 RPM in the typical case. But this, because the record isn't spinning the record, can't maintain a constant speed of 33 RPM. It literally has to speed up as it gets closer to the middle, which is pretty amazing, actually. It's pretty amazing. So we're going to place this here. I'm going to put it a little bit in, not on the very edge. You can use this dot to line it up. In fact, let's just do that. And then we're going to lift this arm and watch what happens. There's a delay, so you can get your hand out of the way. And somehow, even though it looks reckless, it will go on and play the record. I'm going to put this down so the record doesn't spin on the smooth surface. And it's stuck in the running groove. So let me watch this. So if I put my finger there and it knocks that bar down, it knows to stop the record. That's how you stop it. So you don't want to grab it off of the record because it will scratch it. All right, let's try again right in the middle here. In fact, I need to turn the volume up because it's quiet as is. So let's crank the volume on this thing. And yes, this is absolutely a novelty. Absolutely, but it's cool. It's just cool. Okay, I'm trying to remember which way to get this on. And there we go. And you should be able to see the wear ring forming. Look at that right there. So it's carving up the record. The sound is heinous. Now, why does this thing transmit Bluetooth? Because there's a Doppler effect with it spinning. The sound kind of, it's kind of like a police siren when it's driving towards you is different in pitch than when it's leading away from you. A lot of people argue with me that that's not Doppler, but it really is. And so with that Doppler effect, the sound is going to be distorted. And is that a powerful speaker? Is anybody else convinced that's a powerful speaker? I don't know. I'm not thinking that's too powerful. So with the Bluetooth out, in theory, and this is one of those ideas I just feel like, looks good on paper, but in actual practical use, just isn't a great way to play a record. There's not a practical reason other than the novelty of it all. The sound is rough, and it'll damage your records every time. I mean, that's typical. You shouldn't be pushing your needle through the groove, okay? And that is why this is the second weirdest record player, but it's not the first. It's not the first. That's coming up next. And coming in at number 1 is the Music Public Kingdom slot-in record player. Man, I had a little bit of the wind taken out of my sails because I just filmed this entire segment on this record player and looked over at my camera and it was not rolling. So I was like, dang, and that was good too. Hopefully I can recapture my enthusiasm, etc., etc. So this takes inspiration, arguably strong inspiration, from a 1960s design that was actually, completely portable while playing. You could carry this around and listen to your records and do what we always say. Why would people do that? And that is play records at the beach. Why would anybody do that? But if you wanted to, you could actually do that with this unit. This one does require a flat surface, as I've got it hooked up right here. The idea of carrying it around, though, is pretty cool. I think that's neat. It is portable. I mean, once you get to your destination, you can flip it on. It's got a built-in rechargeable battery. Think Nokia battery style. And you can charge that over and over until the battery dies, as this one did, requiring you to power it off of the wall, as I am. So if we flip around here and look on the side here, you've got, or on the back, barrel connector, 5-volt power supply, just like a Cruiser or Victrola Portable, etc. So there's no audio outputs. You'll notice there's no audio outputs on the sides or the back. And if we look on the bottom, we have an adjustment for the motor speed. It's 2-speed turntable, rubber feet, etc., etc. But yeah, it is a self-contained unit, not really designed to connect to anything else. However, you can actually connect Bluetooth to it. It doesn't transmit Bluetooth, but it will receive Bluetooth. So if you want yet another device that acts like a Bluetooth speaker for your phone, this does that as well. It'd be cool if it transmitted out, but it does not. So obviously the novelty here is in the fact that it is a slot-in record player, and you insert records, as I'm going to show you in a second, just like you would a CD. But what also makes this interesting is it's not half bad. When I first got this, it was a record carver, just like the unit we looked at. It was damaging records. Rest in peace my foolishly inserted Dave Brubeck single, Take 5 on vinyl, 7-inch. I put that in here, carved it up. Actually, it wasn't vinyl. It was styrene, which made it even more susceptible to a rather heavy tracking force. Out of the box, this thing was tracking at 10 plus grams, and I was able to make an adjustment. By the way, you can go back and watch me do that and destroy my Dave Brubeck record. On previous episodes, we've covered it all. But after I made that adjustment, it now tracks at a comfortable and very workable 5 grams, which is what the ceramic Chuodenshi clone that it has is designed to operate at. One thing that I find fascinating about this unit is it plays 7-inch records, but you can play 7-inch records that are 33 and 45, and you can play 7-inch records with small or large holes. It automatically senses the hole size and can play both. I think that's pretty cool. So let's go ahead and test it out. So to do that, I'm going to adjust it to 45 RPM. We'll start with the large hole, 45 RPM, as you can see right here. Don't use your prized possession on this. You can see I'm not putting Patsy Cline in here, and I wouldn't do that either. We are going to use a record that I don't mind if it gets a little bit damaged, because what can happen sometimes, that stylus, that tone arm doesn't reset to the reset position, and I've had it scratch when I'm putting the record in. I've had, odd things happen. This is a novelty. This is a fun, interesting novelty. It is not a hi-fi, get the best sound out of your records kind of a record player. This is just for fun. So with that being said, if you've got some garage sale records, some records that are already beat up a bit, and you just want to have fun or show this thing off, or you've kind of modified it as I have to be half decent, then go to town. And you may be saying to yourself, why do you have it so far away? I mean, shouldn't you have it closer to the camera? I'll show you why in a minute. But to play the record, you just loosely insert it. This is a hard plastic platter, just like a suitcase player. It has a spring-tensioned tone arm and a Chuodenshi cartridge. There's no rubber nubs on the platter because it uses a clamp from the top to affix the record to the platter. It doesn't need the tack and adhesion of a rubber contact point. And it doesn't damage your records from that standpoint. But yeah, here we go. Without further ado, put it in that far and then give it a pretty firm push for the rest of the way, and it'll start playing automatically. Now you'll notice the sound isn't too bad. And that's, again, one reason why I think this is a #1 weirdest record player. Because it's not just weird, but it's functional. It's usable. And it's fun. And you can get decent sound out of it. You can get a tone control, etc., etc. You'll notice that the song didn't start at the very beginning. Sometimes it skips a few grooves in. It's another kind of quirk. But here's why I've got this thing so far back. These things are known to be record launchers because it's got a very highly tensioned and reactive eject mechanism. So watch what happens. It shoots the record out. Now sometimes it'll shoot it 1 or 2 feet out. That was actually pretty mild in comparison. But yeah, they are record launchers, which is, again, pretty fun. Not prized vinyl material right here, guys. This is for fun only. All right, now we're switching to a small hole record, children's record here. We're going to put this in, and it will adapt to that small hole, no problem. I did change the speed to 33 RPM, and this one is starting at the beginning.
To town, riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. Where, oh where? Where, oh where has my little...
Okay, so let's try to launch this record out. Here we go. That was pretty good. That was a pretty good launch. That was a pretty good launch. All right, my friends, and that is going to do it. Again, I've said it a couple times now. If you want to learn more, go back and check out the full review videos. Those are available for you on the channel. You're invited to join the Vinyl Nation. If you've ever thought about doing that, you get an extra show every week and additional benefits as well. We would love to have you there. We've done a lot of shows now, dozens and dozens of shows. I'd have to count it to see, but a show every Friday in addition to our 2 other shows, and you are invited to join us there. Well, that is going to do it for today. So happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.